Okay, so I guess let's move on to Tesla related stuff. I mean, we talked about the bill a little bit already as part of the macro markets section, but more interestingly with Tesla, anyone who's on Twitter who's followed us has probably seen some discussions this past weekend about people in the financial community that seem that kind of just talk like they understand Tesla's autonomous vehicle driving technology. And then when you kind of drill them on it, they talk very confidently, but then all of a sudden they throw in things like dependent on 5G and edge computing and the battery can't support it, locally. They're throwing these things that, if you weren't watching it close, if you didn't know Tesla's, technology, you would just go along with it and be like, oh, this person's so smart on everything. Sounds so smart. That makes sense, And as an anecdotal story, my dad, who I think is super smart and bright and he has a Tesla too. He's been driving it, uses the autopilot, loves it. He doesn't dive into the details nearly as much as me, right? But as a test,
but he's more attuned to kind of autonomous vehicles as an opportunity than the average citizen, right?
Yeah, he even brought the idea of autonomous vehicles up to me back in 2012, before Tesla and Elon started talking about it. And I thought he was crazy. I was like, no way. He's like, yeah, in the future, in 5 or 10 years, there might be autonomous vehicles. And I was like, what? You're crazy. So he's very futuristic thinking in general. But he's not like a Tesla fanatic like me. Doesn't spend so much time studying them like I do, obviously. But at a family dinner the other night, 2 nights ago, I just, as a test, was like, here, can you listen to this 1 minute thing and tell me what you think? And I pulled up the 1 minute clip that I think Warren Redlick had tweeted out that I retweeted or whatever. And I just let him listen to it without any kind of context of what I was going to ask him about it. He listened to it, the whole thing. And then at the end, he's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I agree 100% with what she's saying. And I was like, what? I was like, you failed the test, Dad. And so there's so many people that are just kind of, if you're not really if you're not a specialist on Tesla compared to then you would just believe it. And so there's a whole, I think it was a Venn diagram. There's a Tesla Twitterverse circle, and we all kind of understand it in much more than most people. But then you have a huge financial Venn diagram circle, financial industry that, those people are generally smart on a lot of things, but they're generalists. They can't be a specialist on just Tesla, but they are part of that other circle, and they all sort of have this huge disconnect and think 5G is required maybe, or that the local compute power on the Tesla, the battery can't support it or something like that for it to be done, on board the Tesla. So there's this huge disconnect. And it got me thinking that maybe, I think medium term, there's a lot more upward possibility for the Tesla stock price, just because there's such a huge disconnect still. And as that bigger circle in the financial industry, the Venn diagram kind of comes to realize that, hey, Tesla's doing things different than Waymo and everyone else, as they start realizing it with this full self-driving beta, then maybe there's going to be a lot more buying of Tesla stock. That's sort of what I'm thinking. But what are your thoughts, Matt?
It did cause quite the hubbub over the weekend. I mean, it was kind of had my notifications blowing up over the weekend. I was spending a little bit more time than I otherwise would have liked on Twitter, kind of dealing with this. But yeah, maybe for those who didn't see that, the kind of core argument that was being made by this this fund manager who allegedly specializes in tech and growth stocks was that Tesla's approach to autonomy does not have 5G implementation. So, and she even said the word that you need, edge computing with 5G in order to kind of make those decisions in real time, so that you can kind of save the milliseconds to react instantaneously. But that actual line of thinking just kind of makes no sense. In fact, I mean, edge computing is the actual philosophy of having your compute right next to the sources of data. So in Tesla's case, you have the data input is what's coming in from the cameras, and the decision making that's being done by the FSD chip is to avoid any sort of latency with needing to go to some sort of central hub. If you had to send an incoming yellow light to Fremont, California, to have some massive supercomputer there tell your car what to do and then go send that signal back to the car, I mean, that would take way more time than is needed, and it would just drive down safety, it would drive up costs, and it's just a completely impractical way to think about it. Yeah, it's a total nightmare. So it's just kind of revealing that people, well-known, quote unquote experts can be pushing a narrative like that, which just, if you know anything about what's actually needed for this space, it's just very kind of showing that they don't really have a depth of knowledge. And a lot of the pushback that she had over the weekend, even didn't make a whole lot of sense either. It was kind of appeals to authority and say, oh, just Google it. Everyone's doing it. But yeah, so anyway, I do think it could be a catalyst. I've been kind of thinking this for a while that, the general public doesn't really know much about Tesla in general yet, let alone kind of autonomy. And I think there's, whenever this button goes out, my thinking is, every time I show my car to people, it's always like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And it kind of prompts them to be interested in driving a Tesla. But I can imagine if it's doing if I can actually physically show people kind of what the beta testers have, that it can actually stop and turn and, cross over the double yellow line when there's, an Amazon delivery truck that it needs to pass, and do so safely, and, get over for bikers and all the stuff that the software can do now. I would imagine that's going to, blow people's mind, because they're not expecting this. I mean, the general public does not know that this technology exists. And even a lot of the quote unquote experts don't really understand it yet. So I do think that there's possibility that you could see some sort of gap up in the next couple months. Not investment advice, obviously, but we tend to think in probabilities, and I think there's a decent probability that this could be some sort of catalyst to move the stock back towards all-time highs.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how it goes after the button comes out, and the take rate of full self-driving, and hopefully the regulators don't screw everything up. And I saw there's some latest news about NHTSA, like trying to get other automakers to comment on Tesla's like 1 or 2 crashes. It's crazy. Like Tesla has 1 or 2 fatalities. There's like 1,000 fatalities a day from auto crashes, and like the 1 or 2 a day that Tesla does, NHTSA and the regulators try to focus on, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's freaking nuts. But we'll see what happens. That's my fear, is the regulators come in and are pressured or by lobbyists or powers that be that, say, put a stop to Tesla's full self-driving. We don't understand it yet. Just like, and it's like there's some order to like stop it, which would be awful. It would kill a lot of people that don't need to be killed because of delaying it. Yeah.
I mean, I heard I forget who it was, but somebody kind of used the analogy that, most people would rather, have a 1 in 1,000 chance of being killed by a drunk driver than a 1 in 100,000 chance of being killed by an autonomous vehicle. Like, even though it doesn't make sense, like the odds are, you should just want the safest possible vehicle. But I think there's a preference to just, say, oh, well, I'd rather have a human kind of no matter what. And autonomous vehicles, if they don't do exactly the perfect thing, then just let's get scared and pull back and overregulate. And I think that is a risk. I don't think it's highly likely. I do kind of tend to agree with Elon that data will win out in the end, and Tesla tracks this data obviously very closely. But it's a risk for sure. And especially when you get, some of the senators pushing more aggressive restrictions, kind of in the play to politics and manufacturers that are in their home state, it doesn't help.
Yeah. I mean, it's just sad. But whenever I think about politics, I get, sad. I got to try to think of silver linings to like not. So, all right. Other topics with Tesla, there was the news that no one's really talking much about of the energy desk being formed. And immediately I was thinking like Enron and like negative connotations, but, I know there's like a big energy trading industry. When I worked at UBS investment bank many years ago, they had an energy trading team, and it was doing well. And I didn't fully understand it, but I'm sure you have some ideas on that. What are your thoughts about this Tesla energy desk?
Yeah, so for those who maybe don't know, my background before I joined Emmet here at Good Soil, I was managing a fleet of wind assets. So I was actually working directly with our energy trading desk at the company that I was with. I'm kind of very familiar with it. I've spent a lot of time in wholesale energy markets. So I think I understand a little bit about what Tesla is trying to do here. So it's not, trading, I think in general kind of has a negative connotation, but it really is. You do need a lot of special authorizations in order to access those wholesale markets. They are highly regulated, and they're highly varied, not only by country, but also by region. So where you are in California, for example, there's, CalISO, which is the grid operator there, which has a whole set of different rules than where I am in Michigan here, which has a grid operator called MISO. I think what Tesla is trying to do, which is something that I've been advocating for a while, is starting with their hardware. They're building out this I think of it as a fleet of hardware assets. So you've got solar and storage assets, which are kind of being deployed every quarter. But cumulatively, it's growing into this bigger and bigger base over time. The customers that actually bought those are taking the majority of the assets, the asset value, because they're getting the energy that's generated and using batteries for backup power, and that's all well and good. But there's this whole suite of other services, such as capacity or reactive power, or some of these kind of niche revenue streams, which are only available in wholesale markets. So, Tesla has not been registered with most of the grid operators or with most of the public utility commissions, which would be needed to in order to say you've got, a gigawatt of solar assets, and you could conceivably get, a recurring revenue stream just by offering those into some of the ancillary services market. So what Tesla's doing now is starting to build out that team so that they can, get those registrations, and they can start monetizing this growing asset base to access the revenue streams. And presumably they'd share some of that with their customers who actually own the hardware. But in my mind, it's a really good thing for them to be doing. Something I thought they would be doing, and I'm just glad to see that they're actually going to be doing it now. I actually made a video about this probably 6 months ago before I joined up with you, Emmet, and was kind of looking at the economics of imagine you have a house that has a solar roof, power walls, 2 power walls, and an EV. And I took a stab at quantifying how much revenue potential there was there that was not already being accessed, and I came up with around $400, of which I thought Tesla could maybe take $200.
$400 a month or a year?
Yes, yeah, sorry, a month. Yep.
Okay.
So it's $1,200 a month, which would be, or sorry, $2,400 per year that Tesla could theoretically monetize, and just hasn't really done so yet. So I'm really excited that they're going to start this out. It's not going to be a huge needle mover in the financials, immediately. But I was doing some math and kind of projecting out what I thought it could be in 2030, and I came up with $8.5 billion of operating income.
Wow.
So it's, people are often asking when is Tesla Energy going to, become a meaningful player, and it's going to start out really small. But with this revenue stream in particular, I kind of think of it as energy as a service. It's not like, an FSD purchase option where it's kind of like a one-time, and it's almost linear where it just ties direct, it ramps directly with your sales. But with energy as a service, it would actually ramp with your cumulative deployments of hardware. And this hardware lasts, 20 to 30 years, generally speaking. So, you have kind of a cumulative impact, which will really grow over time, especially as Tesla enters new markets and kind of ramps this trading capability worldwide. So I'm really excited about it. It'll be a slow burn for sure, but I think it's going to just surprise people when 2030 rolls around and all of a sudden they've got this huge energy business.
Yeah, it just speaks to the conglomerate of businesses that Tesla is building out, whether it's insurance, it's new energy trading, arbitrage desk, or energy as a service, as you call it. I think there's so many business opportunities growing within Tesla that a lot of folks have no idea about, or aren't calculating as part of the stock price in the future. So it's exciting. There's going to be more of these types of units of business within Tesla conglomerate that will be popping up, I think, in time. And I think by 2030, it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be like the Berkshire Hathaway of energy, all in one company.
I mean, you can imagine by that time, they'll probably have the heat pump deployed at some amount of scale. Their solar roof will be, they talked about wanting to do 20,000 solar roofs a week as the long-term goal. So that will be a very significant hardware business. And then on top of that, they'll have the energy as a service business, which will just continue to monetize these assets going forward. And then you've got, optionality of all these other business lines. Like, who knows what they're going to be doing with AI 10 years from now? I mean,
the humanoids will be deployed to create a whole new stream of tons of big businesses. That could be the biggest business of all in the future, the humanoid, the section, like it's like displacing all of human labor, basically. It's crazy. So